My name is Lena. I am 28 years old now. But this story did not begin when I fell in love. It began much earlier. I grew up in a house where emotions were controlled, not expressed. My parents were not cruel. They were simply distant. Love in our home was practical. Food on the table. School fees paid. Lights turned off on time. No hugs without reason. No questions like, "How do you feel?" So I learned early that silence was normal. I learned that wanting too much made people uncomfortable. And I learned something dangerous. That being easy to live with was the same as being loved. As a child, I was praised for being understanding, for not crying, for not complaining. Adults loved me because I asked for nothing. And slowly, I became a woman who expected nothing too. When I moved out for university, I didn't feel free. I felt lost. People around me were loud, emotional, demanding. I didn't know how to be any of those things. I only knew how to wait. When love first spoke softly, the first time I noticed Daniel, it was not dramatic. No sparks. No sudden music in the background. He was just there, sitting 2 rows ahead of me in a lecture hall. Always early. Always quiet. He didn't try to impress anyone. He didn't laugh loudly. He didn't flirt. And somehow, that felt familiar. We started talking because of a simple question. "Do you understand this topic?" he asked once, turning halfway toward me. I nodded, then hesitated. "Not really," I admitted. He smiled, not wide, not charming, just honest. "Me neither." That was it. That was how everything began. We studied together, sat side by side in libraries, shared coffee without sugar. Daniel listened more than he spoke. And when he did speak, he spoke carefully, as if words mattered. That made me feel safe. He never rushed me, never touched me without asking, never made me feel like I owed him affection. For someone like me, that felt like love. When he asked me to be his girlfriend, he didn't kneel, didn't make promises. He simply said, "I like the quiet parts of you." No one had ever said that before. So I said yes. At first, everything was gentle. We walked instead of rushing, talked instead of arguing, waited instead of demanding. When he held my hand, it was light, as if he would let go the moment I asked. And I never asked. But love is not only about kindness. It is also about desire. And slowly, I noticed something missing. Daniel kissed me, but his kisses felt careful, like he was afraid of crossing an invisible line. When I leaned closer, he leaned back. When moments became intimate, he changed the subject. I told myself, he respects you. He is different. This is what healthy love looks like. So I stayed quiet. Again. Months passed. Friends teased us. "You two act like an old married couple," they laughed. I smiled. Inside, something felt unfinished. One night, as we sat in his car, rain tapping softly on the windshield, I asked him gently, "Do you ever think about more?" He froze. Just for a second. But I saw it. Then he said, "Of course, but there's no hurry." No hurry. That phrase stayed with me. When he proposed, it felt logical, safe, expected. My family approved immediately. "He's stable," my mother said. "He won't hurt you." I believed that was enough. On my wedding day, people said I looked calm. They didn't know. I had trained my whole life to look that way. That night, when we were finally alone, I waited again. I sat on the bed, hands folded, heart loud. Daniel entered slowly. He looked nervous, not excited, not eager, nervous. He sat far from me and said the words that would quietly change my life. You must be tired. That night, nothing happened. And I told myself, tomorrow. The marriage that spoke in silence. After the wedding, life did not change the way people said it would. There was no sudden warmth, no new closeness, no sense of beginning. There was only routine. Mornings came quietly. We ate breakfast facing the same table, but not each other. He asked if I slept well. I said yes. I asked how his day would be. He said fine. Our words were polite, careful, empty. At first, I told myself this was normal. People say marriage is about adjustment, about patience, about learning each other slowly. So I adjusted. I lowered my expectations. I softened my questions. I waited. Again. At night, I lay beside him, listening to the space between our breaths. Sometimes his arm brushed mine, and my heart would jump, only to fall when he turned away. I stopped initiating conversations that led nowhere. I stopped asking if something was wrong, because every time I did, he smiled gently and said, "Nothing is wrong, you're thinking too much." So I stopped thinking. Or at least, I tried. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. People around us began to notice things I had tried not to. My mother asked quietly, "Are you okay?" I smiled. Of course. Friends joked, "You two are so calm." I laughed with them. Calm is a dangerous word. It hides loneliness well. Inside our home, there were no arguments, no anger, no passion either. We lived like roommates who respected each other deeply, but never crossed a line. I began to wonder if the problem was me. Maybe I was too quiet, too patient, too easy. Maybe love required more noise, and I simply didn't know how to make it. One evening, I tried again. We were sitting together, the television playing something neither of us watched. I turned to him and said softly, "Do you ever miss closeness?" He paused, then replied, "You shouldn't pressure yourself." Pressure. That word hurt more than rejection. I wasn't asking for anything unreasonable. I was asking to be seen. That night, I cried silently. Not because I was angry, but because I felt invisible. I questioned everything. My body, my worth, my place in his life. I searched for signs that I mattered. I found none. I started filling my time with other things. Books, work, long walks alone. The quiet no longer felt peaceful. It felt heavy, like something important was missing. And no one wanted to name it. Months later, I finally asked the question I had been afraid of. "Did you want to marry me?" The room went still. He didn't answer immediately. And in that silence, I already knew. The truth he never planned to say. The silence after my question felt endless. "Did you want to marry me?" He looked at the floor, then at his hands, then away from me. That hesitation answered everything, before his words ever did. "I thought I did," he finally said. It made sense. Sense. Marriage reduced to logic. I waited for more. For honesty. For feeling. Instead, he continued quietly. My family was worried about me. They wanted stability. A good image. A calm life. I sat very still. "And me?" I asked. "What did I mean to you?" He swallowed. "You were easy to live with." That sentence didn't sound cruel. But it was. "You didn't demand much," he added. You didn't argue. You didn't push. I realized something painful in that moment. The parts of myself I thought were kindness had become reasons to be overlooked. That night, I didn't cry. I felt numb. When someone finally confirms what you have feared for months, your heart doesn't break loudly. It goes quiet. After that conversation, everything changed. Not on the surface. We still shared meals, still said good morning, still lived under the same roof. But something inside me shifted. I stopped waiting for him to choose me. I stopped hoping he would wake up one day and suddenly want me. Hope had become exhausting. I began to see the truth clearly. He didn't hate me. He didn't want to hurt me. He simply didn't love me. And that hurt more than anger ever could. I started reclaiming small pieces of myself. I spoke more at work. I laughed louder with friends. I took walks alone without feeling guilty. For the first time, I began to imagine a life beyond this marriage. That scared me, but it also felt like air. One evening, as we sat together again, he noticed the change. "You seem different," he said. I nodded. "I'm learning to listen to myself," I replied. He didn't know what to say to that. That night, as I lay awake beside him, I finally understood something important. Love doesn't disappear suddenly. It fades slowly, when it is never fed. And silence can starve even the strongest heart. That night, I did not sleep. Not because I was crying. Not because I was angry. But because, for the first time, I was awake. I lay beside him, listening to his breathing. And I realized something quietly terrifying. I had been married, but I had never been chosen. And once you see that truth, you cannot unsee it. The next morning, I woke up before him. I made tea. I opened the window. I watched the city move. Life was continuing, with or without my pain. That thought stayed with me. Days passed. I didn't confront him again. I didn't ask for explanations, because explanations don't change reality. Instead, I observed. I noticed how easily he lived without touching me, how comfortable he was with distance, how little he noticed when I pulled away emotionally. And I understood. He didn't miss what he never truly wanted. One evening, months later, he asked casually, "Are you unhappy?" I looked at him. For the first time, I didn't feel fear answering honestly. "I don't know," I said, "but I know I am not alive here." He didn't argue. He didn't try to stop me. And that was the final confirmation. I left quietly. No accusations. No tears. No dramatic goodbye. I packed only what was mine. And as I closed the door behind me, I didn't feel broken. I felt unfinished and ready to begin. Years later, people still ask me, "Do you regret leaving?" I smile gently, because regret belongs to those who stayed silent too long. I don't regret leaving a man who never touched me. I regret the years I touched my own worth so lightly. I learned something important from that marriage. Love is not politeness. Love is not patience alone. Love is not silence. Love is choice. Every day. And when you are never chosen, walking away is not failure. It is self-respect. I married once and remained untouched. But I left knowing something far more important. I was never unlovable. I was simply in the wrong place, asking the wrong person to see me. And that realization changed my life forever. At the end,